Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. We're going to take a look at how we can use the Layers pane to instantly and quickly change the widths of columns throughout an entire table at once. We're looking at a table right here, the roads table, and another tab that we have open here is a map that we'll work with later. But let's go back to the roads table. And this is a table that we brought in from OpenStreetMap. It shows roads in the region of Monaco. And it has a bunch of attributes here, as you can see. And the columns by default have a variety of different widths. Some of them are convenient, some of them are not. So for example, we can change the width of this column there. And let's say we take a look at some of these columns, and some of them are too wide for what they need to be. So for example, this column here, the first one, the MFD ID column field, is way wider than is necessary for either the name of the column or for the contents of the column. Whereas this one here with name on it is too narrow for what the contents are, although the name of the column does fit. So how do we change these things? Well, if we want, we can right click here on name, and we can choose best fit, and that'll automatically change it. Let's make that narrow again. Or we can choose here on name in the layers pane and choose a best fit, and that'll automatically change it as well. The layers pane though can do a lot more than just individually change one of these things, because we can select rows in here and apply what we're doing to all those at once. And that's the way that we can change the width of all these columns at once. So here in the layers pane, let's click into it to move the focus there. Then I'll choose Control A. I'll do a Control A. That'll select everything. And now if I right click on any one of these, for example, let's right click on any one of these and choose Best Fit Title, it'll automatically apply the Best Fit Title command to all the selected layers, that is all the selected columns. Now what Best Fit Title does is it takes a look at both the contents, what's inside the actual column, and it also takes a look at the title. If the contents are very narrow, for example here or in this one way or in this max speed column, Best Fit Title will make the column wide enough to fit the title so you can read the title. On the other hand, if the contents are very wide, for example here in the name field or here in F class where the contents are wider than the name of the title, what it will do is it'll set the width of the column to be wide enough to show the contents here. And what it actually does, it actually will take a look at the contents of the field, scanning the database to decide how wide to make that column. So we've just done that very conveniently, and if we want to change any of these things, for example, let's say we want to change max speed, but we want to change the other ones, we just deselect max speed. Now we can right click and choose best fit, and it'll best fit to the contents. Or let's say one way, and choose that best fit, and that'll just go there. If you want to apply best fit to everything else that's selected, we just right click on any of the selected ones, choose best fit, and that will apply to all the selected ones. We can Control I to invert the selection, and now here right click on those, best fit title, and that'll just apply to these. So you can see once you learn how to do selection in the layers pane, and especially if you're using things like folders, you can extremely rapidly make selections of the various columns that you want, and there could be hundreds of columns in some tables, and then set them as you like by applying the context menu commands to either only the one layer which is not selected, or when you apply to a selected layer, that applies to all the selected layers as well. The same philosophy of what happens in the layers pane that gets applied to a selected item applies to all, carries over to when you're working with maps. So we've clicked in the map, and as you can see, the layers pane has automatically switched to showing what's in the map, the layers that are in the map. And what we have here in the map are a bunch of different layers. We're not really using the layers here in the transportation layer, so I'll turn that off in transportation folder. But we have here two layers that we're working with. We have a places layer that's a drawing that has points in it, and two of the points are selected. It's this one here and that one there, and the other points, which are in blue, are not selected. The ones that are selected are shown in red selection color. We can Shift Control to got to make that the active layer. We can Shift Control to turn that on and off, and Control click it to turn it on and off, to select it or deselect it. And in the buildings layer here, we have a bunch of objects here that are selected. We can select that one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings that are selected. So if we go here into the layers pane and we just right click on the buildings layer, we can choose zoom to selection, and that'll zoom to only the buildings layer, to the selected items in the buildings layer. That's great, but suppose we want to zoom to selection in both the buildings layer and in the places layer. To do that, we control click the buildings layer, control click the places layer, and now when we right click on either of them and choose zoom to selection, it will zoom to selection for all for what's selected in all the selected layers. So in this case, it has zoomed to selection for to include these guys here who are selected in the billings layer, and also these 2 points that are selected in the places layer. When it did that zoom, it actually is zooming to the center part of these 2 points here. And because I used especially large icons here so that you can see which ones are selected against all this background color, it's actually zooming to the center part of those. So I can do one click out with the mouse wheel to show you all that. That's an extremely convenient way of working with this, and the same thing, by the way, also applies if, let's say we move this around and we right-click and choose Zoom to Selection in the tab here. It'll zoom to just that one, or right-click and Zoom Selection in that tab there. It'll zoom to that one there. Or to go back to zoom to both of them at the same time here in the Layers pane, we can right-click and choose Zoom to Selection, and it'll now zoom to both of the selected items. The moral of the story is keep that Layers pane open, learn how to work with it. The more layers that you have in a map, and here we're using a very small screen because after all we're filming this in a relatively small display. Quite a few people work in Manifold with 2 or 3 monitors, so they're using a full screen display, for the central part of the map, and they have all these accessory panes to the left and right monitors. And they have multiple other panes or multiple other windows open at the same time. When you're working with complicated maps that have very many layers to them, working with the Layers pane is the way to go. And likewise with tables, when you're working with tables that have many layers in them, let's Control A, and let's do a best fit title for all these guys to restore so we can see everything. That's a very quick way of restoring order to a table. Just Control A to select all the different columns here, right click on it, choose best fit title, and away you go. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from the Manifold channel. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.